Hello, welcome back to Fire Gaming. My name is Ben, and today we're going to continue on Suzerain 2.0. So last time out, we had a little chat with friends Richter. We did some reforming on our education system, as well as got some additional funding through selling off our shares in Gasom, and the vineyard investment thing paid off for a little extra personal wealth. So yeah, let's pick it up here. Alright, let's go to whole sword for a lobbying effort in the assembly. Let's see. Chief Strategist Lucian Glass prepared a well-planned lobbying effort in the Parliament, which would specifically sway on-the-fence MPs for the upcoming Constitution vote. The plan includes lavish parties, gifts, even some political favors. Should we go ahead with the plan? Yeah, let's go ahead and do that just to make sure the thing passes, but we're not going to go all out for it because we don't have that much money. Cool. Alright, so I guess next up is heading to Jen for Victory Day. Search drove us to the city of Jen, the stronghold of Swordfish nationalists, for an event organized by the opposition parties to discuss current events. In reality, it was probably a publicity stunt to show Swordland that the leaders of the assembly could sit around the same table. The National Front Party, which governed the city, undoubtedly had the biggest hand in the organization of this meeting. It was not a coincidence that it fell on Victory Day. Today was a day of special symbolic importance for Swordland. Every year on the 14th of March, proud patriots from all ages gathered to celebrate the end of the Swordfish Civil War and Tarkeen Soul's victory. Jen had survived one of the worst atrocities of the war, and its Victory Day celebrations were the most jubilant in all of Swordland. Originally, only Peter and I were scheduled to attend, but after learning about the new developments with the Ishval Urson case, Nia Morgan was invited as well. Representatives from both the PFJP and FP had told us they wanted to talk about the case in more detail. Nia departed Wholesword first. Peter and I left on our own a little later. Peter was sitting next to me in the presidential car, skimming through the morning newspaper in silence. Suddenly, Surge rolled down the soundproof window.
Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, we're about to arrive at the Chen Center of Culture. Miss Morgan had already arrived, and she'll be waiting for you.
Peter raised his head to look out the window. He folded the newspaper and laid it beside him. Wow, that's too comfortable of a drive to have been this fast. See, I wasn't joking. Surge is the best. I'm not kidding. My job is Sveric and hold a candle to him. Although I sure wouldn't mind navigating on dangerous curves one day. Peter laughed. No, I should write you guys more often. I can't believe I could actually read on the go.
You're embarrassing me, sir. I'm no special man. It's the Kadia.
Surge took a left turn and drove through the tiny streets of Jen. The city looked surprisingly clean and well maintained. There is no sign of the destruction the city suffered during one of the heaviest battles of the Civil War. We slowed down in front of a colorful plaza overlooking a massive concrete building with a giant sign that read Jen Center of Culture. Looks like the NFP mayor has really transformed the city. Was this an abandoned warehouse for the longest time?
I believe it used to function as a rebel militia base during until a while after the Civil War.
Oh, right, the Black Battalion. It's been a while since I've heard that name. Sorry to bring it up, may never be spoken again. Surge stopped the car and went outside to hold our doors.
Here we are, sirs. Hope you have a great day.
We got out of the car and walked towards the entrance to the building. Every spot around us was decorated with the flags of Swordland. A comically large amount of flags almost fully enveloped the buildings around the plaza in maroon, white, and gold. At the entrance, Kasara Keepner, head of the National Front Party, was waiting for us in his iconic brown suit, watching the sky. Look at this guy, he's so full of himself. How did this clown convince the PFJP to have trilateral talks to them anyway? Probably the same reason we're here. It's Victory Day, remember? How can I forget? Lucy nagged about the importance of the day for 20 minutes straight. It broke my soul. Seeing us arrive, Kasara approached us with a smile.
Thank you for being here on this glorious day, Mr. President and Mr. Vice President. As the former mayor of Jen, it is an honor to welcome you to this fine city.
Yeah, looks like you're a good mayor. Maybe you should think about running for local office again.
Thanks for the kind words, but I'm sure I'll do an even better job as president. Besides, as you can see, our current mayor doesn't need my help.
We shook hands.
Thank you for organizing this, Mr. Keebner. The representatives of the PFJP and Minister Mogna are already inside the private meeting room. Hopefully we'll be finished before the festivity starts.
Casaro gestured at the doors behind him. Shall we? Please.
Just follow me.
We entered the building, walked through a massive conference hall until we approached a door towards the back of the building.
We'll have the meeting here.
Casaro opened the doors for us. We entered the meeting room. DFJP leader Franz Richter and his deputy Manoli Suhail were already seated at the left side of the table. As soon as we entered, Nia came to greet us. After showing our seats, Casaro sat down next to his deputy, Remus Holstrom. Ah, great. So many new people.
This is such a meaningful day. Thank you for coming here on behalf of your parties.
But despite the festive atmosphere, we in the PFGP want to raise a few important concerns about the worrying state of affairs in Swordland. Casaro stopped for a moment to check his notes.
Very worrying indeed. Mr. Richter and Alice have been working on an analysis of the blood problem. As soon as they brought it up, we gave our support without reservations.
The blood problem?
Mr. Holt.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the analysis about racism and radicalization in Swordland, and our main topic is the case of Erson v. Swordland. Please don't try to spin it.
Of course, Miss Suhail and Mr. Holstrom just wanted to point out that this analysis is focused mainly on topics related to the Bluish people.
I refuse to discuss this topic without any Bluish representation.
Actually, Mr. President is completely right.
Well, look, guys, let's hear them out first. We are representing the parties of the Assembly here.
We did invite the representatives of the Workers' Party Bluidia to join us, but they refused. Another proof that they have a different agenda. If they were genuinely concerned for the plight of their people, they would have come today. But their people shouldn't worry. The Swordlish Patriots are here to defend them instead.
I'll hear you out, but know that I will not act on anything before talking to the representatives of the Bluish community.
Let's get back on track, ladies and gentlemen. He gestured at friends. I want to give the words to Mr. Richter to explain the issue.
Thank you.
Our analysis of the current tensions between the Bluish and Swordlish population Swordland displays a worrying picture. As much as I hate to say it, the threat of the Bluish Freedom Front is going to breathe again. The situation with Rumberg and Valen is very concerning. The increasingly discriminatory actions of the Governor of Berger are resulting in the radicalization of many young Bluish people. Distressingly, the number of radicals have almost doubled after the implication of our armed forces in the Operation Bear Trap. I must also point out that the recruitment numbers of the BFF have significantly increased within nurse communities.
Peter frantically looked through his papers.
That is correct. The reports show that 39 nurse sanctuaries in Berger are not classified as red threats by the authorities. Many priests in the region are also suspected of having ties to the BFF. The Religious Harmony Bill would have directly crippled this network they established within our sanctuaries. As the threat of the BFF poses, is a direct one. This issue requires direct action, so bear direct results. I am disappointed by the lack of action taken by the USP administration.
Your bill would have unnecessarily raised the already high tensions.
You did well by vetoing it, Mr. President.
Our suggestion is to finally enforce the official language of our country as stated in the Constitution. We are working on the Unified Language Act. It is directly aimed at the breeding grounds of the Bluish Freedom Front. The police have infiltrated 32 BFF training grounds in remote towns around Berger that pose as middle schools. Despite all the evidence, similar schools keep popping up. And so-called activists are constantly blocking Governor Braun's attempts to stop these schools, claiming he is attacking their right to language. You can't take away the Bluish people's right to be educated in their own language. It's insane. Please read the proposed carefully. It does not take away anyone's rights. It only gives the state a way to control the radicalization these schools teach Bluish nationalist propaganda. And according to this Constitution, the language of Swordland is Swordish. Nothing is being done to enforce that. We are breaching the Constitution. This law simply enforces it. With all due respect, Mr. Kibner, this bill is not strong enough. The Bluish language should be completely banned. You know people like Miss Suhail and Miss Mogna will never even vote for your watered-down bill. Remus?
Casaro repositioned himself on his chair and continued.
True, does not ban Bluish language or Bluish education. It will instead make Swordish mandatory to learn for everyone living in this country. This will only decrease the tensions in the long term. That's a fair point. However, the wording of the bill is far too vague to work as intended. It gives the government too much power over educational institutes. I disagree. The language is quite clear and is in line with the Constitution, but we can still improve it, of course. It is true that it gives more control, but it is necessary compromise.
Yeah, I don't see how this helps the situation.
It doesn't. Simple as that. The PFJP will not allow this bill to pass the Assembly.
Let's not make statements that the party hasn't agreed on yet. Monolith looked furious. She opened her mouth to respond, then read the room and closed it again.
As if the PFJP has the influence to change the outcome.
If I may continue with our analysis, the situation is also connected to Rumberg, as everybody already knows. In the case of a future incursion, BFF forces in Sorland could become an existential threat. Let's go with this one. With all due respect, I already received this information from Internal Affairs. It's not something we don't know.
Just let me finish, Mr. President.
He adjusted his tie and continued. That makes dealing with the armed militants crucial in the short term. I'll be honest, I myself have underestimated this threat. But judging by the current climate, Spark is all the BFF needs to start violence on a mass scale again. Our analysis matches with what the Ministry of Interior shared with us, but despite this fact, we believe the Ministry is hiding information from us, which is actively fueling the tensions behind the scenes. As much as I now support a strict response against the BFF, it must also be coupled with the expansion of rights for the British people. This is the only way to fight against radicalization.
That is BFF propaganda. What rights are we talking about here? What can a sword and Solent do the Blood cannot? You're using soft language as a cover-up for your willingness to negotiate with terrorists. You're a BFF apologist, Mr. Richter.
Remus shouted the last sentence. Peter tapped on the table to get his attention.
Please don't raise your voice, Miss Alston.
The mood in the room had turned sour.
Is the OSP that desperate for Mr. Richter's support now?
Manley bellowed out a loud laugh.
Mr. Vection is the last person to sway the PFJP.
What's that supposed to mean? Ah, God, this is a mess. I thought we were brought here for a proper meeting. Xaro and Peter nodded.
You heard the man. Please finish your point, Mr. Richter.
Yes, our administration should take all possible opportunities to expand the rights for the British populace while stamping out the BFF militants in parallel. And this must be the long-term strategy. However, we require your support with a more pressing matter. This might have very significant consequences for our British citizens and may serve as a dangerous trigger if we're not careful. Friends gestured at Manley. She carefully placed several pieces of paper in front of her.
Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, and Miss Minister, as you already know, there's a major Supreme Court case at the moment. Ishval Urs is suing the governor of Berger, Felix Braun, for infringing upon the liberties of the British people and demands that the Constitution be revised. Because of the argument and the implications, Felix Braun, and consequently the very Constitution of Solent, is under trial. The fact is, he needs to be punished and the Constitution must be reviewed. Let's see, I don't want to give too much away, but she's not wrong. We are already aware of this case. Nia raised her hand and spoke. I was actively involved in this case. Because of the implications of the Constitution, there's no way the Supreme Court will agree with Ishval Ursa on all the points. Lots of all three parties of the Assembly support Ursa together. We can put pressure on them, but we only need them to agree on a few of those points. All parties? Is the NFP really willing to support Ursa, Mr. Keebner?
For peace and harmony in Solent, yes, but perhaps we must clarify the details first.
Okay, well, what's the significance of this case?
I'll be straight with you, Mr. President. If the court rules against us, then this will most likely turn into a BFF campaign for British Revolution. We ask everybody to recognize this. I and the NFP are ready to push for de-escalation and aid our nation in this dangerous time.
I'll be completely honest, I would never have expected that from you. Remus was visibly annoyed, but kept to himself.
Because the case is now in the hands of the Supreme Court, this ruling will influence all future implementation of the law and the decision-making of the lower courts. We have the Minister of Justice here with us too. I'm sure she would not disagree with what I just said.
Nia did not comment, but nodded.
I'm afraid Mr. Keeban is right about this. If the court ignores this case now, it may turn into something massive. And therefore we have to pressure the court not to escalate the already high tensions.
What do you really think will happen if the court ignores it?
Another all-out BFF rebellion, Mr. President. In my opinion, that would be the preferred outcome. If enemies do truly live within our borders, I'd rather have them show their true faces earlier than later. This is exactly what those damn Romans want. They're ready for war and waiting to use the tensions side Soldan against us.
I think that threat's exaggerated.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's not. We normally don't trust government data, but our analysis came up mostly in line with reports from the Ministry of the Interior and the Ministry of Defense. I wouldn't say this for most other topics, but in the case of the threat of the BFF and radicalization, you should maybe listen to your cabinet.
Alright, well, what's the most likely outcome in this case?
And the first and most likely option is that the Supreme Court completely ignores the arguments and rejects it in its entirety. If they ignore all of the points to strike against us, then Governor Brown will be free to follow his discriminatory policies without any obstacles. And in a possible future case, the court's interpretation of the arson case will be the basis of all future rulings, which opens the way of suspending the rights of non-swords. It would effectively erase any progress that has been made regarding British rights, and will embolden anti-British proponents to follow their actions freely.
Well, that would be disastrous for our British citizens.
Exactly. That is precisely why our expectation is to see a different result this time. The stakes couldn't be higher.
Alright, well, what are your plans and suggestions?
In short, the plan is to release a unified statement to the justices declaring our support for us and explaining why this is so important. The only good result would be if the Supreme Court reiterates its commitment to the Pillar of Unity in Solism. Mr. President, despite previously being against it, I now completely understand why Soldan still needs Solism. We need unity more than ever. And Article 6 is that unity. We did not need Solist unity.
Xara stared Remus down and continued.
If the court reiterates the definition of sword in Article 6 as an all-encompassing term, they will be acknowledging that us and others like him are indeed protected by the rights of the sword peoples, which they are. As a result, the resettlement policy in DA will be reversed, opening the way for Governor Brown's removal and the de-escalation of tensions in Berger.
Doesn't that mean the existence of the British people is literally not being acknowledged?
Exactly. Our current constitution fails to recognize the British people, and it's time we abolish inherent racism in it. The citizens of Soldan are swords. The constitution clearly defines that in Article 6. It encompasses everybody, and that shouldn't be up for debate. What racism are you talking about? Solism is based on civic nationalism, not ethnic. I do not understand why someone would go against such a broad and inclusive law. I don't see the commies criticizing their identity Kantanen, when in fact the country is filled with different ethnicities.
Why are you even comparing Soldan with the United Cantana? Are you alright, Mr. Keebner?
Very funny, Mr. President. My point is, people like the Millennia do not call themselves Kiovian over Kantanen. Why is it the Blues cannot do the same? Why does Soldan have to be divided? You have a point, but I must point out that Kantana is a word for a geographic entity, unlike sword. This is Soldan. You can just subscribe to whatever idea you want, but if you are a citizen, you are a sword. This is how nations work. The reality is the Blues do not respect nor recognize the laws and authority of Soldan. They'd rather separate themselves from swords and protest the very laws that protect them, so that they can cry about injustice and ask Soldan's enemies to come and save them. I personally do not agree with the Blues are swords, swords crap. I can't believe the words being thrown around this meeting.
Neither can I. I think it's time we wrap this up.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the president. Let's sum it up and arrive at the point quickly. I personally somewhat agree with Mr. Keeban on this. However, our position as the PFJP is Article 6 does indeed discriminate against non-swords. And having a positive outcome for this case alone doesn't suffice. We agree to come together in support of Ishval Erson, but we believe our statement should include the acknowledgement of the inherent racism within the Constitution. We must use this opportunity to show the flaws in the Constitution. If the court agrees that there is in fact conflict between the articles, will recognize the discriminate. And the Hawker Court is going to listen to that. Besides, we do not agree with your inherent racism hogwash. You have to state that it is your party's opinion and does not reflect the NFP. We won't take part in that. That would make the statement look weak and disorganized. If there's not a strategy, I don't think it would work.
I think I have enough information here to be able to say we're deep in the mud here. Peter laughed at his own joke attempt, but nobody else reacted. Well, I think the NFP stunts could do some good for the Blues without provoking the establishment, but even that might be risky before the vote. But the PFJP stance is too radical. I think it will only antagonize the Supreme Court even further and make them give a worse ruling. I think it might be better to keep our administration out of this. I'm not sure if it's worth the risk right before the vote for our reforms. We might lose all our progress, but the decision is yours. Yeah, I definitely agree with Peter on this one, but let's see. I guess let's go and follow up with some questions here. Tell me why we should pressure the court to admit discrimination within the Constitution. Because it's the right thing to do, Mr. President. Now is not the time for weak and superficial actions. We can show the people of Solden the reality of the situation and create a precedent for future constitutional amendment of these articles. And the NFP is willing to join in with that statement? No, we are willing to give our support for Urson for the violation of his right to property. But if you're going to go that way, we have to make two separate statements. And how do you think the Supreme Court will react if we do it your way? We have to try. If they truly care for the people, they will agree to it. If not, people see the reality of the solar state apparatus. What do you think, Peter? Peter leaned in and whispered, I don't think this will work, Anton. The court won't be influenced, plus it will further antagonize them against our reforms. We'll definitely lose votes. In my opinion, the PFGP is the most to gain from this. They'll be seen as the leaders of the stable, not us. Well, what do you suggest we do, Miss Morgana? Nia leaned in and whispered, I agree with Mr. Richter and Ms. Suhail. I personally think we should join them in their statement. But I also agree that Chief Justice Harker won't have a sudden change of heart because of it. I think I've made my own position clear. However, you know about the current political reality. In the end, it is your decision. Alright, well then, tell me why we should try to convince them to reiterate their position on Article 6. Because it's the only way to decrease tensions, and the Supreme Court can't afford to look hypocritical, so they'll have to take the Sodas side. I still think the submitting defeat against Sodism by Mr. Keaton is right. The Rumberg situation demands extraordinary measures. Is the PFJP willing to join in with that statement? As much as I don't agree that we are willing to compromise and join in. But if you're going to go this way, we'll still need to make our own separate statements as party policy. Manley was shaking in her seat in fury, but managed to keep herself silent. And how do you think the Supreme Court will react if we do it your way? I truly believe they will be convinced. It is not against their ideology, and that is what Colonel Soul intended with the Constitution. We'll be shooting them with their own guns. Just imagine, all parties of the Assembly reminding them of their duty with their own beloved Constitution. Mr. Hawker can't take that pressure. Well, what do you think, Peter? Peter leaned in and whispered, He thinks this is Scanton, but it works, which it could make a big difference. If the court really feels the pressure and accepts it, the law courts will need to adhere to their interpretation. It might not get rid of illegal discrimination, but it could at least decrease it. If we're looking to reduce tensions to the Bluish people, that's one way to do it. But with the vote on reforms coming so soon, it's a real leap of faith. Oh, what do you suggest, Miss Morgana? Nia leaned in and whispered, I definitely do not agree with Mr. Keebner or Mr. Holstrom. I don't see Solism's unity working in reality. But I also have to say that pushing this position will likely have a real effect on the outcome of the case. Mr. Hawker can agree with the traditional Solus interpretation after all. However, as long as our law enforcement forces are filled with anti-Blood officers, I don't believe the change on the ground will be so visible. Cool. Oh, I think I've heard enough. I don't want to release the unified statement of the opposition. We will not involve ourselves in this case. The representatives of both parties looked at me with disappointment. Really? The correct choice, I would say. The Hawker Court will do the right thing. Nobody should intervene. Well, that's very disappointing. If we're alone in this, the PFJP will keep fighting. With all due respect, Mr. Richter, I think nobody expected the ESP president to help with Bluish rights anyway. We appreciate your concerns, ladies and gentlemen. Now that the ESP stance is clear, we should probably end the meeting here. After bidding our farewells, Casaro took us outside the building to join the Victory Day event on the plaza. Cool, alright, let's see. So looks like we got 3 newspapers, and there's at least 1 report down here. So let's just start with the report. Yep, it's just 1 report. Cool. Alright, from Volgan. Foreign investments in Morna's energy sector withdraw. Morna is witnessing a retreat of foreign investments from its energy sector. This unexpected reversal has raised concerns about the long-term stability and growth prospects of the local energy industry.
The authorities are closely monitoring the situation to understand the underlying causes and to devise suitable countermeasures. Interesting, that might come up again later. Alright. 3 newspapers here, so let's start off with the Wholesale Post. The largest ever Victory Day celebrations. Yesterday, Sordon celebrated Victory Day, and the big celebration took place in the nationalist stronghold of Jen. The city hosted the largest ever celebration with military personnel, vehicles, and hundreds of thousands of people participating in the spectacle. The event was attended by President Rain and Vice President Vectern, who were seen alongside Kasara Kiebner, the leader of the NFP. This comes at a time when the NFP is seeking to expand its influence in the country, and their association with President and Vice President is a significant development. The festivities were concluded with a speech by the mayor of Jen, who spoke of the need for unity in the face of foreign threats and the importance of preserving Sordon's traditions and values. Cool. Alright, Sordon's Day. Gazom investment, a boon for Sordon. Our government's hefty investment in Gazom has proven successful, bringing newfound stability to our domestic energy sector. This decisive action for the government has not only saved one of our biggest energy companies from a financial downfall, but also solidified Sordon's commitment to supporting its industries. The investment has set Gazom back on track and showcased how the government's strategic moves can bring prosperity to the nation. Fantastic. Alright, last up from the Radical. Political differences at Victory Day. Yesterday's Victory Day celebrations were a spectacle of nationalism and militarism in Sordon, as the government continued its propaganda of glorifying war and violence. The largest celebration was held in Jen, a notorious national stronghold where the NFP holds significant power. President Rain and Vice President Vectern attended the event alongside Kasara Kiebner, the leader of the NFP. The ruling government's willingness to have talks with the far-right party raises questions about their commitment to democracy and human rights. The NFP's agenda of racial superiority and exclusion goes against the very values of equality and justice that Sordon claims to uphold. While the government continues to glorify war and nationalism, the leaders of the PFJP released a supportive statement to Ishval Ersin and asked the Supreme Court to serve the justice that is due, bringing attention to the real problems that the Burgeons are facing in the special zone. Way harder to say than it should have been. Alright, so let's pop over here to Lockhaven real quick. Check out the Gazom shares sale results. Alright, the Board of Gazom approved and concluded the sale of shares. The final transaction results of the divestment have arrived in this report. Minister Hull and Minister Monge have facilitated the entire process with former President Alphonse of Gazom, and their returns are on their way to the State Treasury. Okay, there we go. I was wondering why it took so long to get that added into our budget, but bam, there we go. +2 government budgets. Fantastic. Alright, that looks like the end of the churn, so we got one more newspaper, so let's check that out. From The Economist, lower returns from Gazom shares. Despite meticulous planning, the State Treasury has reported lower than expected returns from Gazom share divestment. This performance underscores the inherent unpredictability of market dynamics and calls for an adaptable approach to economic policymaking. With this outcome, the government must strategize to counterbalance these subpar returns and maintain economic stability. The government's next steps will determine our economic trajectory in this uncertain landscape. Fantastic. Alright. Well, that appears to be the end of the churn. So, let's go ahead and move on here. Ooh, it's the end of the chapter, too. Chapter 3, Victim of Changes. Sweetness. Alright. And there's a save point, so that feels like as good a place as any to go ahead and call for today. So, as always, thank you all very much for watching. I hope to see you all next time.